Armed with undeniable evidence of galactic deception, Jawan and her team faced the most difficult decision any beings had confronted in millions of years. They could remain silent and continue living comfortable lives within the controlled system. Or they could reveal the truth and face consequences that no one could predict. The urgency of their choice became clear when they discovered that the Council was planning its most ambitious project in galactic history, the creation of an entirely artificial galaxy that would house trillions of beings, all constructed according to traditional architect specifications. The project was called the Great Work, and it would require the combined resources and knowledge of every species in the galaxy. Over the next 1,000 years, hundreds of civilizations would work together to build billions of star systems, countless planets, and complex gravitational structures that would create a perfect galactic environment. More importantly, the Great Work would cement the architect mythology so deeply into galactic culture that questioning it would become literally unthinkable. Future generations would grow up surrounded by obviously artificial cosmic structures, making the idea of natural formation seem impossible. "We have to act now," said Jiwan as the team met in their secret location deep within the station maintenance levels. "If the Great Work begins, it will be too late. The evidence of natural cosmic formation will be buried under layers of artificial construction, and no one will ever question the system again." Our Sunho crystal body flickered with anxiety as he processed probability calculations. "The risks are enormous," he said. "If we are wrong about any part of our theory, we will be branded as mentally unstable and sent for correction. If we are right, we will be opposing forces that have controlled galactic civilization for hundreds of thousands of years." But your gaseous form pulsed with determination. "What choice do we have?" she asked. "If we stay silent, every species in the galaxy will remain trapped in a system designed to limit their potential. The Narati will continue controlling development, and no civilization will ever reach its true capabilities." Minho large eyes reflected the weight of their decision. "My people have a saying," he said quietly. "The deepest truths are found in the darkest waters. We have swum into the deepest darkness of galactic deception. Now we must bring what we have found back to the light." Jiwan made the choice that would change everything. She requested an emergency session of the full Galactic Council, claiming that she had made a discovery of universal importance that required immediate attention from all member species. What she did not realize was that her research activities had been detected by hidden monitoring systems that reported directly to Narati operatives embedded within the Council structure. Her request for an emergency session triggered alerts that reached the highest levels of the conspiracy. On the morning of her presentation, Jiwan woke to find her quarters surrounded by additional security forces. The official explanation was that her important discovery required extra protection, but the real purpose was to ensure that she could not escape if her presentation became too dangerous to the established order. As she walked through the station corridors toward the main council chamber, Jiwan noticed subtle changes in the atmosphere. Species that had been friendly before now watched her with suspicion. Some alien officials whispered among themselves and fell silent when she approached. The council chamber was packed beyond capacity, with representatives from every known species filling the seats, while observers crowded into the galleries above. Emergency sessions were rare, and the promise of a discovery of universal importance had attracted beings from across the galaxy. As Jiwan took her position at the center of the chamber, she noticed several unfamiliar figures in the observer galleries. They were tall, elegant creatures with silver skin and eyes that seemed far older than their faces suggested. These beings watched her with particular intensity, and something about their presence made her feel deeply uncomfortable. She began her presentation methodically, showing the mathematical evidence that proved the existence of two different types of cosmic structure formation. The chamber remained quiet as she displayed age discrepancies between monuments and the structures they claimed to have created. When she revealed the hidden control messages embedded in monument inscriptions, the atmosphere in the chamber changed dramatically. Several species began speaking among themselves in agitated whispers, while others demanded immediate verification of her claims. But the most dramatic moment came when she presented the historical evidence about the Narati deception as soon as she mentioned their name, the Silver. Skinned observers in the galleries began leaving, quietly but quickly, their movements coordinated in a way that suggested they were following predetermined plans. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some species accused her of fabricating evidence to gain attention. Others demanded that she be immediately arrested for spreading dangerous misinformation. A few, however, began standing to share their own suppressed doubts and observations that supported her claims. Counselor Soyin, who had been one of Jiwan's most vocal opponents throughout her investigation, suddenly stood and called for order. These claims are obviously the result of human psychological instability, she announced, her forearms gesturing dramatically. Humans are known for their chaotic and unstable thinking patterns. Perhaps Dr. Kim requires immediate medical intervention, but Dr. Sunho had been prepared for exactly this response. His crystal body flashed brilliant white as he projected irrefutable mathematical proofs that filled the chamber, holographic displays with equations and data analysis that could be verified by any species. The evidence is mathematically certain, he declared, his voice carrying across the chamber. These patterns cannot be falsified or misinterpreted. The signatures are clear and the age dating is precise. Everything Dr. Kim has presented can be independently verified. This support from one of the galaxy's most respected mathematicians caused a dramatic shift in the chamber atmosphere. Species that had been dismissing G1 claims began demanding access to the raw data so they could conduct their own analysis. What happened next surprised everyone, including G1 herself. As the mathematical proofs filled the chamber displays, something unexpected occurred. Species after species began standing to share their own suppressed knowledge and hidden observations. The elderly Macrani elder, Dongmin, admitted that his people had ancient engineering techniques that seemed to work better than architect blueprints, but had been forbidden to use them for millions of years. Young Ephral scientists revealed that they had discovered natural energy formations that were far more efficient than anything described in official designs, even the crystalline. Vorthek began sharing mathematical theorems they had developed independently but kept secret because they contradicted the fundamental assumptions of architect-based science. These discoveries had been suppressed for so long that most species had forgotten they ever existed. For millions of years, the galaxy's greatest minds had been holding back their own insights and discoveries because they conflicted with established mythology. The realization that they had been living under artificial limitations was both liberating and terrifying. As the testimonies continued, it became clear that every major species had suppressed knowledge that supported natural cosmic processes over artificial design. The evidence had always been there, but the monument programming had been so effective that no one had dared to connect the pieces. The silver-skinned beings who had been quietly leaving the chamber made one final attempt to maintain control. Their leader, a tall female with ancient eyes that seemed to hold the memory of millennia, addressed the council directly. Her voice carried strange harmonics that seemed designed to inspire compliance and acceptance as she spoke. You have been happy and prosperous under our guidance for countless generations, she said. Why do you wish to embrace the chaos and uncertainty of unguided development? We have protected you from the dangers of unrestricted scientific inquiry. The admission that these beings were indeed the hidden Narati controllers sent shock waves through the chamber, but their attempt to reassert control through vocal manipulation failed completely. The evidence was too overwhelming and the desire for truth too strong. Species after species stood to reject the Narati guidance and demand the freedom to explore natural, cosmic processes without artificial restrictions. The galaxy's greatest civilizations were finally ready to break free from millions of years of controlled development. As Jiwan watched the transformation beginning around her, she realized that humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization was not superior technology or military might. It was something far more powerful and dangerous to any system of control. It was the simple human habit of asking what if and the courage to question everything, even when the questions led to uncomfortable truths. The universe was about to discover just how revolutionary that simple question could be. Within a week after the chaotic science meeting, a small group of scientists from different species had secretly joined G1 investigation. They met in hidden corners of the station during off-duty hours, speaking in whispers and sharing data through encrypted channels that could not be monitored by Council security systems. Besides Counselor Minho, the group included Dr. Sunho, the brilliant Vorthic mathematician whose crystal body could process enormous amounts of data simultaneously. His decision to support Jiwan research had shocked his entire species, since the Vorthak were known for their absolute devotion to mathematical perfection and established order. The team also included Yura, a young Ephral engineer, whose gaseous form allowed her to manipulate energy in ways that no solid being could match. She could scan the internal structure of ancient monuments and cosmic formations without causing any damage that might alert Council authorities to their investigation. Their research had to be conducted carefully, using personal equipment and working only when they were supposed to be off duty. Any official investigation would have been immediately reported to the Council leadership, who had made it clear that questioning the architect teachings was considered a form of mental illness requiring correction. Their first major breakthrough came when Dr. Sunho discovered something extraordinary hidden in the mathematical patterns of structures that were supposedly built by the architects. While the monuments claimed that everything in the universe had been artificially constructed, the actual mathematical signatures showed two completely different types of formation. Look at this data, said Sunho, his crystal body pulsing with excitement as he projected holographic equations that filled their secret meeting room. The signatures from structures near the monuments are clearly artificial. They show perfect mathematical ratios, engineered stability and construction techniques that follow specific blueprints. But watch what happens when we examine structures that are farther away from monument sites. He continued adjusting the display to show different cosmic regions. These structures show completely different mathematical patterns. They follow natural physical laws for formation, showing the kind of random variation and adaptive complexity that you would expect from physics-based processes rather than intelligent design. Yura energy scans had confirmed this discovery in spectacular fashion. Her ability to manipulate different types of energy allowed her to examine the internal structure of cosmic formations in ways that no other species could achieve. What she found was revolutionary. The artificial structures have a specific kind of energy fingerprint. She explained, her gaseous form shifting through different colors as she processed the implications. This fingerprint is absolutely consistent across all structures that are near monuments. It shows the same construction techniques, the same energy manipulation methods, and the same mathematical precision. But the structures that are farther from monuments show completely natural energy patterns. She continued, they have the kind of random variation and evolutionary development that you would expect from natural cosmic processes. Stars that formed from gas clouds, planets that developed through gravitational accretion, and solar systems that evolved through billions of years of natural interaction. Their most shocking discovery came when they decided to examine the monuments themselves. Using Yura's specialized energy manipulation abilities, they were able to scan beneath the surface layers of the nearest monument without triggering any of the security systems that protected these sacred structures. What they found changed everything they thought they knew about galactic history. The monuments were not as ancient as everyone believed. While they were certainly old, perhaps several 100,000 years, they were far younger than many of the cosmic structures they claimed to have created. This is impossible, whispered Minho, his aquatic suit bubbling with agitation as he studied their scan results. Carbon dating analysis and energy decay measurements show that many stars and planets are millions of years older than the monuments that supposedly announced their creation. Jiwan felt her mind reeling as she processed the implications. This means that someone built these monuments to take credit for cosmic structures that already existed. But who would do such a thing? And why would they want to control how other species think about the universe? Their answer came from the most unexpected source possible. While analyzing the inscription patterns on various monuments, Minho discovered something that made his aquatic blood run cold. Hidden within the base programming of the universal language was a secondary message that could only be detected using advanced mathematical analysis techniques. The hidden message was brief but terrifying. It read, control through creation myth. ensure species compliance through divine architect narrative, suppress development of natural philosophy, prevent questioning of established cosmic order, maintain technological dependence on approved blueprint systems. The team stared at this message in stunned silence, realizing that they had uncovered evidence of the greatest deception in galactic history. The monuments were not left by benevolent creators who wanted to share wisdom with younger species. They were propaganda tools designed to control how every civilization thought about reality itself. But who had created this system of control, and why had they gone to such elaborate lengths to convince entire civilizations that natural cosmic processes were impossible? The answer required them to dig deeper into historical records that were heavily protected and classified. By council authorities working together, they began to hack into restricted archives using Sun-Ho mathematical abilities to crack encryption codes, Ura energy manipulation to bypass security systems, and Minho knowledge of ancient data storage techniques. His aquatic species had developed unique methods for preserving information over millions of years. What they found in the deepest levels of the council database was a historical record that had been deliberately hidden from general access. There were references to an ancient species called the Narati who had supposedly vanished from galactic civilization around the same time that the first monuments had appeared. The records about the Narati were fragmentary and heavily censored, but what remained painted a disturbing picture. They had been a relatively advanced species, but not exceptionally powerful compared to other galactic civilizations. However, they had developed something far more dangerous than superior technology. The Narati had perfected the art of controlling other species through carefully crafted beliefs about reality itself rather than conquering civilizations. Through military force, they had discovered that you could guide entire societies by controlling what they believed was possible or impossible. According to the hidden records, the Narati had realized that if you could convince other species that the universe worked in one specific way, and that questioning this understanding was dangerous or forbidden, you could control their entire development as a civilization. By promoting the belief that all cosmic structures were artificially created rather than naturally formed, they prevented other species from developing the kind of scientific curiosity and natural philosophy that might eventually lead them to surpass Narati technology and influence. They turned the entire galaxy into a controlled experiment, said Ura, her gaseous form contracting with horror as she processed the implications. Every species follows architect blueprints because they believe natural formation is impossible. This keeps everyone technological development on predictable paths that never threaten Narati control. But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. As they continued their investigation into Narati history, they found evidence that this ancient species had not actually vanished from galactic civilization at all. According to the most heavily encrypted records, they had simply integrated themselves into galactic society, operating behind the scenes to guide council decisions while maintaining the myth of the disappeared architects. The Narati were still out there, somewhere hidden among the hundreds of species that made up the Galactic Council. They had been manipulating galactic civilization for hundreds of thousands of years, ensuring that no species ever developed the scientific independence that might threaten their control system. As the team absorbed this terrifying knowledge, they realized that their investigation had put them in incredible danger. They had uncovered a conspiracy that reached to the highest levels of galactic government and involved forces that had been successfully controlling hundreds of civilizations for longer than most species had existed. Tomorrow, they would have to decide whether to remain silent and live safely within the controlled system, or to risk everything by revealing the truth about the greatest deception in the history of the universe. The choice would determine not just their own fate, but the future of every thinking being in the galaxy. The next morning, Jiwan woke early and prepared for her first council science meeting. She had spent most of the night analyzing data and preparing a presentation that would show her findings about natural versus artificial cosmic structures. Her hands shook slightly as she gathered her research files, but her scientific curiosity was stronger than her fear. The science meeting was held in a smaller chamber, Designed specifically for technical discussions, the room could adjust its environment for any species, so Jiwan found herself breathing Earth normal air while sitting next to a Makrani who was surrounded by higher humidity and a Vorthek, whose section glowed with specific light frequencies that helped his crystal body process information around. The circular table sat representatives from 12 different species. Each had achieved incredible technological advances and contributed unique knowledge to galactic civilization. The Thurai had mastered biological engineering and could grow living ships. The Nexari had developed mathematics so advanced they could predict stellar evolution thousands of years in advance. The Palenth had learned to manipulate gravity itself and could move entire planets. Elder Dongmin called the meeting to order and invited each species to share their latest discoveries. The presentations were amazing. A Thurai scientist showed how they had grown a new type of plant that could survive in the vacuum of space. A Nexari mathematician presented equations that could calculate the exact lifespan of any star. The Palenth demonstrated a new gravity field that could protect planets from asteroid impacts. When it was Jiwan's turn to speak, she stood slowly and activated her holographic display. The room fell silent. As images of cosmic structures filled the air above the table, she had prepared carefully, choosing examples that would be clear and undeniable. Honored colleagues, she began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. I have been studying the cosmic structures in our galaxy, and I have found something interesting. She showed side-by-side comparisons of different star systems, some built according to architect plans and others from regions that had supposedly been corrected from natural formation. The architect-built systems show perfect mathematical relationships, she continued. Every measurement fits ideal ratios that provide maximum efficiency. But look at these systems that were supposedly natural before correction. They show different patterns, more complex relationships that create stability through diversity rather than rigid planning. The alien scientists leaned forward, studying her data with growing interest. Several began running their own calculations on personal devices, checking her measurements and mathematical analysis. But here is what puzzles me, said Jiwan as she displayed her most important discovery. When we examine the actual physical evidence, these supposedly natural systems show signs of being much older than the monuments that claim the architects built them. The energy signatures suggest these structures formed through natural processes over millions of years, while the monuments are only hundreds of thousands of years old. The chamber fell completely silent. Every alien in the room stared at the data with expressions that ranged from confusion to alarm. Elder Dongmin clicked his claws against his shell, a sign of deep distress among his people. Counselor Hyong's crystal body flickered through several colors before settling on a deep orange that indicated extreme concern. Dr. Kim, said Elder Dongmin slowly, what exactly are you suggesting? Are you questioning whether the architects built these structures? Jiwan took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would change everything. I am not questioning their skill or their existence, but I'm wondering if perhaps some structures in our universe form naturally through physical processes rather than intelligent design. What if the universe had its own way of creating beautiful and complex systems? The reaction was immediate and explosive. Several species began speaking at once, their translation devices creating a chaos of overlapping voices. The Thurai representative stood up so quickly that his chair fell over. The Nexari mathematician began calculating frantically, as if trying to prove Jiwan wrong through pure mathematics. Impossible, declared Counselor Soyan of the Zephyrian Empire, her forearms waving in agitation. The monuments clearly state that the architects created all cosmic structures. The universal language itself tells us this truth. It has been accepted by every civilization for 10 million years. But has anyone ever tested this theory? Asked Jiwan, pressing forward. Despite the growing tension in the room, has anyone looked for evidence that might support natural formation versus artificial construction? The chamber erupted. Several species called for her immediate removal from the meeting. Others demanded that she be sent for educational correction to fix her obviously confused thinking. A few, however, remained quietly thoughtful, their expressions showing curiosity rather than fear. Among the thoughtful ones was Counselor Minho of the Aquatic Depths. His Large eyes reflected an intelligence that had been shaped by millions of years of underwater civilization where observation and adaptation were more important than rigid planning. His species had always been careful observers of natural processes. This is clearly a result of human psychological instability, announced Counselor Soyen, her voice rising above the chaos. Humans are known for their chaotic thinking patterns. Perhaps Dr. Kim requires immediate medical attention to correct this dangerous mental condition. Dr. Sunho, a brilliant Vorthek mathematician whose crystal structure allowed him to process enormous amounts of data, simultaneously had been quietly analyzing Jiwan research throughout the meeting. Now his body flashed bright white as he projected additional calculations for everyone to see. The mathematical evidence is compelling, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. The patterns Dr. Kim has identified cannot be easily dismissed. These signatures do suggest two different types of formation processes. This admission from one of the galaxy's most respected mathematicians caused another wave of shocked discussion. Several species began demanding that Sunho also be examined for mental instability, while others started reviewing the data more carefully. The meeting dissolved into chaos, with different factions arguing loudly about the implications of G1. Research Elder Dongmin finally called for order and announced that the session would be suspended pending further review of the evidence. As the aliens filed out of the chamber, many gave G1 looks that ranged from anger to pity to curiosity. She gathered her materials slowly, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. She had asked the forbidden question, and there was no taking it back. That evening, as Jiwan sat alone in her quarters reviewing what had happened, she received an unexpected visitor. Counselor Minho appeared at her door, his aquatic suit allowing him to maintain the water environment. His species needed to survive. Your words today were very troubling, he said carefully, but they were also very interesting. My people have old stories, very ancient ones, about a time before the monuments appeared. We never spoke of them because they contradicted the architect. Truth. Jiwan felt her heart begin to race. What did these stories say? Minho's large eyes seemed to look into the distant past. They spoke of stars being born from great clouds of gas, of planets forming from cosmic dust swirling together over millions of years. They told of life emerging from simple chemical reactions rather than careful design. We always considered them primitive myths from before our people understood science. He paused, his gills fluttering with nervous energy. But what if they were not myths? What if they were memories passed down from our ancestors who lived before the monuments appeared and told us how the universe really worked? Yuen stared at him, realizing the implications. You mean other species might have similar stories, hidden memories of natural processes that have been suppressed by the architect teachings? It is possible, said Minho quietly. If your research is correct, then everything we have believed about the universe might be wrong. And if that is true, then we need to find out who created the monuments and why they wanted us to believe the architects built everything. As Minho left, Jiwan realized that her simple question had opened a door that could never be closed again. Other species might have suppressed knowledge about natural cosmic processes. The monuments themselves might not be what they appeared to be. And somewhere in the galaxy there might be answers that could change the understanding of reality itself. She spent the rest of the night wondering if she had the courage to keep searching for the truth, knowing that each new discovery would make her more dangerous to whatever forces wanted to keep the galaxy believing in the architect mythology. The universe suddenly seemed much larger and more mysterious than she had ever imagined, and for the first time since arriving at the council station, she began to wonder if asking what if might be the most important thing any human had ever done. Dr. Kim. Jiwan pressed her face against the cold metal window of the transport ship and watched the stars grow brighter as they approached the Galactic Council station. She had dreamed of this moment for 20 years, ever since Earth first received the invitation to join the most powerful organization in the known universe. The station was massive beyond anything humans had ever built. It stretched across space like a silver city with towers that sparkled in the light of 3 different suns. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at ports along its outer ring. Some ships looked like giant flowers made of crystal. Others resembled flowing water held together by invisible force fields. A few were just balls of pure energy that pulsed With their own inner light, Juan adjusted her simple blue uniform and checked her translation device one more time. She was nervous, but excited. Earth had only developed faster than light travel 15 years ago, which made humans the newest and youngest species to ever be invited to the council. Most alien races have been traveling between stars for thousands or even millions of years. When her ship docked, she was met by a delegation of 3 council members. The first was a Makrani named Elder Dongman. His species looked like giant turtles that walked upright on 2 legs. Their shells were covered in beautiful patterns that told the story of their lives. Dongman's shell showed he was very old and very wise. The second greeter was a Vorthak called Counselor Hyong. The Vorthak were made of living crystal that changed colors based on their emotions. Right now, Hyong was glowing a soft blue, which meant he was happy and curious. His crystal body was tall and thin with faceted surfaces that caught the light in amazing ways. The third member was the strangest of all. Counselor Nari was an Ephral, which meant she existed as a cloud of intelligent gas. Held together by her own willpower, she had formed herself into a roughly human shape to make Jiwan more comfortable, but occasionally parts of her would drift away and flow back together. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Dr. Kim said. Elder Dongman in perfect Korean. The translation technology was so advanced that each species heard others speaking in their own native language. We are honored to have humanity join our great family. Jiwan bowed in the traditional Korean way, which seemed to please all 3 aliens. Thank you for accepting us, she replied. I am excited to learn from species who have been exploring the galaxy for so much longer than we have. As they walked through the station corridors, Jiwan was amazed by the diversity of life around her. Tall insect-like beings with 4 arms chatted with small furry creatures that looked like living teddy bears. Robots that seemed to be alive walked alongside beings made of pure light. There were species she could not even begin to describe. The station itself was a work of art. Every surface was covered in flowing designs that seemed to move and change as you looked at them. The walls glowed with soft light that adjusted automatically to be comfortable for whatever species was nearby. The air smelled like flowers from a dozen different worlds. Your species shows great promise, said Counselor Hyong as they entered a lift that moved not just up and down but in all directions at once. You have already mastered nuclear fusion, quantum communication, and basic space folding. These are impressive achievements for such a young civilization. Jin felt proud but also humble. As the lift moved through the station, she could see through transparent walls into laboratories where alien scientists worked on projects she could barely understand. In one room, beings made of liquid metal were building what looked like a miniature star. In another, crystalline mathematicians were solving equations that filled entire walls with glowing symbols. They arrived at the main council chamber and Jiwan gasped. The room was enormous, with a dome ceiling that showed real-time images of the galaxy rotating slowly overhead. Thousands of seats were arranged in a perfect circle, with each section designed for different types of alien biology. There were pools of water for aquatic species, platforms of different gravities for heavy world beings, and even sections filled with different atmospheric gases. At the center of the chamber stood something that took Yuan breath away. It was a perfect holographic model of the entire known universe, with billions of galaxies spinning slowly in their eternal dance. Every star, every planet, every nebula was shown in perfect detail. This is the Universal Archive, said Counselor Nari, her gaseous form rippling with pride. It contains the complete record of everything the architects built when they created our universe. 10 million years of galactic civilization have contributed to its completion. Jawan stared at the display. The architects were legendary beings who had supposedly designed and built every cosmic structure in existence. Stars, planets, gravity, even time itself had been carefully crafted by this ancient race before they mysteriously vanished. The story was carved into massive monuments that appeared near every species' homeworld. When they first developed space travel, every civilization learns the truth when they reach the stars, continued Elder Dongman. The architects left us instructions and blueprints for everything. They showed us how stars should be arranged, how planets should be formed, and how life should develop. We have followed their wisdom for millions of years. The holographic universe sparkled with markers showing which structures had been built by the architects according to their original Plans almost everything was marked in gold, indicating perfect construction according to the ancient blueprints. Only a few scattered regions showed different colors. What do the other colors mean? Asked Jiwan, pointing to some blue and red areas scattered throughout the display. Those are anomalies, explained Counselor Hyung, his crystal body flickering with slight embarrassment. Sometimes cosmic events create structures that do not match the architect plans. Supernovas, black hole formations, random planetary arrangements. These areas require correction to bring them back into proper alignment. As they continued the tour, Jiwan was shown the great construction projects currently underway. The council was building new star systems according to architect blueprints. Each project took hundreds of years and involved dozens of species working together. They moved asteroids into proper orbits, guided the formation of new planets, and even controlled the birth of stars to match ancient specifications. Everything was planned, organized, and perfect. The spiral arms of galaxies were adjusted to match ideal mathematical ratios. Planetary systems were arranged for maximum stability and beauty. Solar radiation was controlled to support the exact types of life the architects had designed. That evening in her assigned quarters, Jiwan sat by her window looking out at the galaxy. The stars were beautiful, but something bothered her. As a quantum physicist, she had spent her career studying the behavior of matter and energy at the most fundamental levels. She understood how complex systems could emerge from simple rules, how chaos could create stunning patterns, and how randomness often produced more interesting results than careful planning. The view from her window showed a newly constructed solar system in the distance. It was perfect, every planet in exactly the right orbit, every moon positioned for optimal gravitational balance. But somehow it looked lifeless compared to Earth's chaotic solar system, with its oddly tilted planets, mismatched moons, and wildly different worlds. Jiwan pulled up her personal computer and began comparing data from the Universal Archive. She looked at images of architect-built systems and compared them to natural formations from Earth's local galactic neighborhood. The differences were striking. The architect systems showed perfect mathematical relationships between all components. Every measurement fit ideal ratios that had been calculated for maximum efficiency and stability, but the natural systems showed beautiful irregularities, unexpected relationships, and fascinating chaos that somehow created stability through complexity rather than through rigid planning. She spent hours analyzing the data and began to notice patterns that troubled her. The natural systems seemed more creative, more alive, more capable of producing surprises. The architect systems were magnificent, but they were also predictable, safe, and somehow limited in their possibilities. As the station artificial night cycle dimmed the lights in her quarters, Jiwan continued to study the data. A crazy idea was forming in her mind. What if the universe had its own way of creating beautiful structures? What if some of the most amazing cosmic formations had happened naturally without any architect planning at all? The idea was exciting and terrifying. She knew that questioning the architect teachings was something no species had ever done. The monuments made it clear that the architects had created everything and that following their blueprints was the path to prosperity and advancement. But as she looked at the comparison data on her screen, Jiwan could not shake the feeling that the universe might be far more creative and amazing than anyone had been allowed to imagine. Tomorrow she would attend her first council science meeting, and she was already wondering if she would have the courage to ask the dangerous question that was forming in her mind. The question was simple, but revolutionary. What if some cosmic structures had formed naturally? What if the universe could create beauty and complexity without needing an architect plan? What if questioning the established truth could lead to discoveries that would change everything? As she finally tried to sleep, Jiwan did not know that her simple human curiosity was about to challenge 10 million years of galactic civilization. The revelation that the Narati were still secretly controlling galactic civilization sent shock waves throughout the council chamber, but the most dramatic moment was yet to come as species after species stood to share their suppressed knowledge. A pattern emerged that changed everything. The Macrani revealed that their ancient shell patterns contained encoded information about natural star formation processes that their ancestors had observed before the monuments appeared. The Vorthik admitted that their most advanced mathematical theories had been developed by studying natural crystal growth patterns rather than following architect blueprints. The aquatic depths shared underwater songs that described planetary formation through gravitational accretion, while the energy being Ephraim demonstrated natural energy manipulation techniques that were far more powerful than anything in the official guidelines. But the most shocking revelation came from an unexpected source. A group of elderly beings from the Corvani species stood together and announced that they possessed actual pre-monument historical records that had been hidden in their deep archives for hundreds of thousands of years. "We are the memory keepers," said their leader, an ancient female whose scaled skin showed the wear of countless centuries. "We have maintained the true history of galactic development since before the first monuments appeared. Our ancestors chose to hide rather than submit to the false teachings." The Corvani records painted a completely different picture of galactic history. Before the monuments, civilizations had developed through natural scientific curiosity and unrestricted experimentation. Technological advancement had been rapid and diverse, with each species contributing unique insights based on their natural observations. The galaxy had been a place of incredible scientific collaboration, where species shared discoveries about natural cosmic processes and worked together to understand the fundamental laws that governed reality. Mathematical knowledge had advanced rapidly as different forms of intelligence contributed their unique perspectives. But then the Narati had arrived, not as conquerors but as helpful advisors. They offered ancient wisdom and superior knowledge, claiming to represent the disappeared architects who had supposedly created everything. Gradually, they convinced species to abandon their natural research and follow predetermined blueprints instead. The transition had been so gradual that most civilizations never realized what they were losing. Each generation grew up with slightly more restrictions on scientific inquiry and slightly less encouragement to question established knowledge. Over time, the natural curiosity that had driven galactic advancement was replaced by obedient adherence to approved methods. The Narati had not just hidden the truth about natural cosmic processes, they had fundamentally changed how galactic civilization approached knowledge itself. Instead of encouraging experimentation and questioning, they promoted acceptance and compliance. The result was technological and intellectual stagnation disguised as stable prosperity. As these revelations filled the chamber, the Narati leader made one final desperate attempt to maintain control. Her voice took on more powerful harmonic frequencies as she addressed the assembled civilizations directly. "You do not understand the dangers you are unleashing," she said, her ancient eyes reflecting genuine concern. "Natural development leads to chaos, warfare, and destruction. We have given you 10 million years of peace and prosperity by guiding your development along safe, predictable paths." But her words had the opposite effect from what she intended. The assembled species realized that their peaceful prosperity had come at the cost of their intellectual freedom. They had been living in a carefully controlled environment that prevented them from reaching their true potential. Dr. Sunho crystal body flashed with brilliant light as he projected new calculations. "We can measure the rate of technological advancement before and after monument appearance," he announced. "The data shows that galactic civilization development slowed by over 90% once species began following architect blueprints. This mathematical proof of intellectual stagnation was the final evidence the Council needed." Species that had been wavering in their support for Zhuan revelations now stood firmly behind the demand for scientific freedom. The galaxy's greatest civilizations were ready to break free from artificial limitations. But the Narati had one more surprise in store. As their leader realized that verbal persuasion had failed, she activated hidden systems throughout the Council station. Emergency barriers slammed down, dividing the chamber into isolated sections, while automated defense systems powered up to enforce compliance. "We cannot allow you to destroy the stability we have maintained for so long," she announced as armed security forces loyal to the hidden conspiracy moved to surround key species representatives. "If you will not accept guidance willingly, then we must ensure your compliance through other means." For a moment it seemed that the Narati might succeed in maintaining their control through force. The security systems were advanced, and the barriers seemed impenetrable. Several species began to panic as they realized they were trapped with no way to escape or call for help. But the Narati had made a critical error in their desperation. They had revealed themselves too completely and underestimated the combined capabilities of the species. They had been secretly controlling Yura gaseous form, began to glow with incredible energy as she accessed natural power manipulation techniques that had been forbidden for millions of years. Instead of following approved energy guidelines, she drew on the fundamental forces that governed cosmic formation itself. The barriers that seemed so powerful crumbled like paper as Yura channeled raw stellar energy through the station systems. The automated defenses shut down instantly as she redirected their power sources, and the security forces found their weapons mysteriously failing. At the same time, Dr. Sunho used forbidden mathematical techniques to hack every system in the station simultaneously. His crystal structure processed millions of calculations per second as he unraveled the programming that had kept species dependent on approved technologies. Within minutes, the Narati control systems were completely disabled and their hidden operatives throughout the station found themselves exposed and powerless. The conspiracy that had controlled galactic civilization for hundreds of thousands of years collapsed in less than an hour as the emergency barriers retracted and normal systems were restored. The chamber filled with a sound that had not been heard in the galaxy for millions of years. It was the sound of hundreds of species talking excitedly about unrestricted scientific research and natural discovery. The Narati leader stood alone in the center of the chamber, her ancient face showing defeat and resignation. "You have no idea what you have unleashed," she said quietly. "The universe is far more dangerous and chaotic than you remember. We protected you from forces and discoveries that could destroy entire civilizations." But Counselor Minho stepped forward, his large aquatic eyes reflecting wisdom that came from living in harmony with natural processes. "Perhaps," he said gently, "but we have also been protected from discoveries that could elevate us beyond anything you can imagine. The universe may be dangerous, but it is also beautiful and creative in ways that planned systems can never achieve." As the Narati were escorted away by species loyal to the New Freedom movement, Giwan realized that the real work was just beginning. Millions of years of suppressed knowledge would have to be recovered, and integrated advanced species would need to relearn natural scientific methods that their ancestors had forgotten. But for the first time in galactic history, every civilization would be free to explore the universe according to their own curiosity and natural abilities. The question "what if" had opened a door that could never be closed again, and the galaxy was about to discover just how amazing unrestricted development could be. The age of artificial limitations was ending, and the age of natural wonder was about to begin. The universe itself seemed to pulse with anticipation as billions of intelligent beings prepared to explore reality without restrictions for the first time in their species' memory. 6 months after the Great Revelation, the galaxy was transforming in ways that no one could have predicted. The collapse of the Narati control system had unleashed a wave of scientific discovery and creative exploration that spread from system to system like a cosmic wildfire. Jawan stood in the observation deck of the rebuilt Council Station, watching as natural star formation occurred in a nearby nebula, something that had been happening throughout the universe for billions of years, but which no one had bothered to study because they knew that stars could only be built artificially according to architect specifications. The view was breathtaking. Massive clouds of gas and dust were collapsing under their own gravity, creating brilliant points of light as nuclear fusion ignited in newly formed stellar cores. The process was chaotic, beautiful, and completely natural, following physical laws rather than predetermined blueprints. "It is magnificent," said Dr. Sunho as his crystal body reflected the light from the forming stars. "We have been studying architect star construction for millions of years, but natural stellar birth is far more complex and interesting than anything we ever imagined." The Vorthic mathematician had become one of the leaders in developing new scientific methods based on natural observation rather than blueprint following. His species had discovered that their crystal structures could process information about natural cosmic processes in ways they had never explored before. Natural formation creates so much more diversity, he continued as he projected holographic models of different stellar types. We thought there were only 12 approved star categories, but natural processes have created hundreds of different stellar varieties, each with unique properties and capabilities. Ura drifted nearby, her gaseous form constantly shifting between different energy states as she experimented with natural power manipulation techniques. The Ephral had discovered that by studying how energy moved in natural cosmic systems, they could achieve effects that had been considered impossible under the old restrictions. I can channel the energy patterns that occur during natural planetary formation, she said, her form glowing with excitement. By understanding how gravity and electromagnetic forces interact naturally, I can create stable energy fields that are far more powerful than anything in the approved guidelines. The transformation was not limited to advanced physics and cosmic engineering. Species throughout the galaxy were rediscovering suppressed knowledge and developing new capabilities that had been dormant for millions of years. The Macrani had begun experimenting with chaotic engineering principles, allowing natural variation and adaptation in their construction projects. Instead of building identical structures according to rigid plans, they created organic designs that could evolve and improve over time. Their new cities grew like living things, with buildings that adapted to changing conditions and transportation systems that flowed like natural rivers. The results were more beautiful, efficient, and sustainable than anything they had built following architect blueprints. The aquatic depths had rediscovered ancient songs that contained encoded information about natural oceanographic processes. Their underwater cities began incorporating natural current patterns in biological ecosystems, creating environments that were both technologically advanced and naturally integrated. Even the most conservative species were beginning to embrace natural discovery methods. The crystalline Vorthek had always prided themselves on mathematical perfection, but they found that natural mathematical relationships were far more elegant and powerful than artificial calculations. We spent millions of years trying to achieve perfect mathematical ratios, said Elder Hyman, a Vorthak leader, whose crystal structure had grown more complex as he studied natural patterns. But natural systems achieve stability through imperfection, through random variation that creates adaptive strength. The most dramatic changes were occurring in the field of biological sciences. Species that had followed approved life development guidelines for millions of years discovered that natural evolutionary processes could create forms of life that were far more diverse and capable than anything in the official catalogs. The Thurai, who had mastered biological engineering within approved parameters, found that natural genetic variation could produce organisms with capabilities they had never imagined. Their new living ships grew organically from seed forms, developing unique characteristics that made each vessel perfectly adapted to its specific purpose. But perhaps the most important change was in how galactic civilization approached knowledge itself. Instead of accepting established truths without question, species began encouraging the kind of curiosity and experimentation that had been suppressed for so long. Universities throughout the galaxy restructured their programs to emphasize natural observation and hypothesis testing rather than memorization of approved facts. Young beings were taught to ask questions and conduct experiments rather than simply accept what they were told. The results were extraordinary scientific advancement that had been stagnant for millions of years, suddenly accelerated at an incredible pace. New discoveries were made daily as species combined their unique perspectives and natural abilities without artificial restrictions. Within the first year after the revelation, over 1,000 new technologies had been developed based on natural processes that had been ignored or forbidden under the old system. Energy sources became more efficient, transportation methods became faster and more elegant, and communication systems achieved capabilities that had seemed impossible. The galaxy had also become more artistic and culturally diverse as species began expressing themselves through natural creativity rather than approved forms. Art, music, and literature flourished as beings explored themes and techniques that had been discouraged under the control system. But the most profound change was in how beings thought about their place in the universe. Instead of seeing themselves as followers of ancient plans, they began to understand that they were part of an ongoing natural process of cosmic Development we are not separate from the universe, said Counselor Minho during one of the new open scientific forums. We are expressions of the same natural processes that create stars and planets and galaxies. Our intelligence and creativity are natural forces just like gravity and electromagnetism. This new understanding led to a fundamental shift in galactic philosophy. Species began working together not because they were following the same blueprints, but because they were all part of the same natural cosmic evolution. Their diversity became a strength rather than something to be managed and controlled. The Narati, who had been exposed and removed from their hidden positions of power watch,